rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years and let her sew again.
Hello everybody, welcome back, and here is this beautiful white VS3. I probably showed the before pictures just a moment ago, so she was quite a state, and she is looking lovely right now. This is, stripping, primer, a few coats of black gloss enamel, the decals that came from �𝐷ecals.com, and then a automotive grade clear coat over it, and I think it's looking lovely, really lovely. So let me get myself organized and we'll get started putting her back together. Okay, so usually I start up in the nose, but I actually want to get the balance wheel popped on first. So I've just, pushed it on there, make sure everything turns well, and it does. And the reason I want to get this on first is because this is what is holding the main shaft in its position. If I take it off, the whole thing's going to move forward, and that's going to knock everything out of whack, so working on the front. So this just spins. That's all it does. It's just attached. Now you can see the groove here. The locking part for this is on this little cap. There's a screw hole right here, okay? But I'm going to get this put together first. There's a little spring wire, and it goes into this tiny hole in the casting there, okay? And then we have this piece, and where that bumps out, this is going to go in and match up the two bumps. Right, like that. And then I have a screw that's going to go through here. Hang on, let me get my screw starter to hold that better. But that goes through this hole here to secure it like that. Okay? Okay, so let's see here. It's going, it's just a long screw. Okay, so let's test and see if this is going to work. If I put it up, will it hold? Yes. Down, will it hold? Yes. That little spring there is going to ride in that little divot area. Okay, so this is the clutch release. So I can put this on, and I want to line up this screw hole. I need to put some oil in there because it's very dry. Okay, line up that screw hole with this little slot, and I can see that slot in there. And then I have another screw. Hang on. Get out of the bag. This pretty screw with the little point on it, that's going to go in there and lock it on that part of the balance wheel. Okay, so it is on there, and the shaft is all the way to the end and maybe 0.5 millimeter more. But right now, if it turns, the front is turning well. Let me just move you so you can see that front moving. And looking through the little peephole here, I want to make sure it's on all the way before I go on to the next thing. Try and get the camera to focus. So it's this piece that I'm looking at. And let me see if I can get a light on. That might help. There is an edge right here that needs to be all the way up against, and it is. So that looks good. Look how smooth that is running. I'm going to throw a little bit more oil in there and then put the little pretty plate over it, and we'll move on. Okay, so here is her pretty plate. I have cleaned it up pretty well. I think it was quite a state. I have done my best to get it shiny, and that's the old needle size, old thread size and everything. They aren't numbered like that anymore, but that's what all of that is indicating, which is very cool. Okay, so now that that is working well, and I know that this cog is not going to move in and out, now I can go ahead and work on the top. This little bumper is turning, which is fine. It is going to ride up against here when this is moving up and down like that, and it makes a very silent kind of operation, which is great. I'm going to put a little bit of extra oil around that, and then work on the front plate, because all of the chaos happens in that front plate. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing up here first, and that is deal with this whole little star cog thing. So I've got this spring that goes centered, and the center of this spring is what lines up with what looks like the slot of what looks like a screw in there, which it is not. Okay, so that is in place. There is a little piece of that spring sticking out, and I'm putting that through this hole on the cog there. Actually, I think it's this way. Okay, now I need to add tension to that spring. So if I look, it is wrapping this way. So to add tension, I bring that over, okay? So putting this on here. I'm just looking to see which side is prettier, honestly. I think that is prettier. Okay, now I'm going to rotate it. See, there's a hole right here for a little screw. Actually, let me get that screw started. Stay on my screw starter before I lose everything here. And I'm going to rotate this a turn. Okay, so it is under pressure there. And put this screw in. Okay, let's see. Now that added enough pressure so that this is going to want to bounce back down. Okay, that's what we want. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I mean, I could turn it one more time, but I think last time I did one of these, I figured out that just one turn was enough. So I'm going to work with that. If when I'm timing it up, it feels like I need more pressure on this thing, I can adjust that later. The other thing I had in that same little zippy bag are the two little set screws that go up here on either side, which I believe are to help me with side-to-side placement of that front cap if I need to. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them in. I think I need to go back and look at the video, but I think this side was out slightly further than this side. I'll go double check, but that's, that's the way they work. I can always adjust it later because they are very easy to get to. Okay. All right. Okay, so looking at the tension unit here, the big hole goes on there. I've got two little screws that are going to go here and here to lock it on. Okay, so that is on, and this does turn. The top is more loose, as it says, and the bottom is more tight. I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle for right now. And let's see if I can get this in here. Up, up, up. All right, on this side there's a little nub, and on this side there's a hole. So I need to get this over that hole and this nub. Let's see if I can do this. Nub and hole. There we go. All right, so this little blade needs to go down underneath here. I thought it was underneath. Oh, there's a little nub in the casting right here. This circle needs to go on top of that. There we go. Oh, you know what? I think I need to pull this out so I can push this down and then put that on top of it. Sequence, you know? So let me do that because I can't really bend this, I don't think, and put it under, or can I? Maybe not. Let me just do the safe thing. Pull these out and then put that over there. All right, I've got that in place. And I am just kind of putting a nice little coating of oil over everything, especially this part here that I was not able to remove because that screw was a big problem, okay? And so, you know, it can't hurt to put a little bit on the metal casting, especially because once I close this up, it's going to stay closed for a very long time. So, you know, can't hurt. This part here is going to slide up and down in these grooves in here. So I want to make sure that is all good. And then over here, I have more grooves that things will slide in. So, you know, prevention and all of that stuff. Okay, now you see how that blade is underneath that cog? So as I turn this, let's see if we can see. It's going to push down as I turn it towards tight. This is going to be tighter, so it's going to pull this out and it'll be tighter up against here. And loose that part because it's not centered. It's at its loosest position. Is that? Oh, that's just a little piece of decal that came through on the screw. Okay. All righty. All good so far. Let's go to the next step. Now it has this little threaded opening. Come on, start threading for me. There we go. That this was in. And I'm still a bit iffy on what exactly it does. It is attached to this piece here, which is part of the presser bar system. I don't know. I don't know what it does. So if you know what this thing does, let me know. Put it in the comments. But you can reach in the front and lift up the presser foot. Maybe it's so that you can lift it higher or something. Not too sure. But we are going to have a lifter lever here that's going to lift it up also. So, you know, there you go. Okay, now I'm going to put this piece in here. If you look, those holes are not perfectly centered. So I'm putting it. And again, if I had been able to take this other piece out, it would make life a lot easier. But I'm putting it with the side that is closer to the edge up this way. And I just need to kind of, hang on, get this so that those holes are going to line up, kind of, sort of here, so I can get the screw started. But the screw heads are going to come in from the outside here, and I've got a couple of them. So give me a minute. Again, if this piece was not in the way, it'd be easier, but I'm just going to kind of mess with it until I can get these screws somewhat started. And then oh, look, that one, nope, not happening. Hang on. Okay, so I've got them started, and if you can see, the holes are bigger than the screws are. This is adjustable because depending on where you tighten it, it's going to raise or lower this bar, which is going to impact the part that slides here. Because these screws are on the outside, I can tighten them later after I get that part in. All right, let's do the lifter lever, huh? So I'm going to put the little washer on. And we have this little deal here. There's a nub right there that this flat part is going to go up against. Oh, center for me, center for me. And then I have this shouldered screw that's going to go in there and hopefully hold it all together. I think I need to recenter that washer down there. So give me a second. I'm just going to wiggle and jiggle until everything is lined up correctly. Okay. Okay, so if that presses up, that'll hold it. So this is partially up like that, and this is up and locked like that. All right, I know it looks like things are not, you know, their usual super, super shiny self, but if you saw the before, you know this is a drastic improvement here. Once the top of this is in place and it's under tension, then you'll see this, you know, snapping down and everything. But right now that's just not going to happen until I get the rest of this put together. Okay, so we're moving on to needle bar stuff here. This part is what is going to be riding over here in that slot that bracket we just put on is up against. Okay, so if it starts to be too rattly, then I will raise these up. But I want to get all of this in first here on the needle bar. This is the bottom. Okay, that's the top. And I'm going to throw oil on it. Again, it's looking much better than it did before. And slide it through from the bottom up through here. Now, I'm looking for a little hole. Have I missed it? Oh, there's not a hole, but if you look very closely here, let me get you in close. See that little point there with a little bit of damage? I think that is where the set screw was earlier. That should line up with this hole. No, I stand corrected. Look, there's this little damage here and a damage here. Okay, you see those two? Okay, you see how these two screw holes here are offset? So this is going to go up to the point that this damaged part, come on, I think I need to put more oil up here in the top. Let me do that real quick. Okay, I have those two little screws in where I think the marks were before. Now, the marks, if you remember, there was like two. You know, it was like it was in one position, and then at another point it was a 1/16 of an inch difference. So I tried to like put it right in the middle of those two. I hope I have the right needle height at this point, because that's what this is going to govern, is your needle height. So we'll just see, hope for the best and all of that stuff. If it looks like I have it either too high or too low, I'm going to need to come back in here, pull these out or loosen them, adjust the bar up or down a bit, and then tighten them up again. So up here on top, this little finial goes on to keep everything in line. Okay, and there's a hole on top that is an oil hole. So if you put oil in the top, it's going to kind of coat the inside of this, which will make everything move up and down freer. So that's what we want. And yeah, it's just dirty. You know, that is life at this point. There we go. All right. So then we've got stuff that go on down here on the bottom, the whole presser foot thing and the needle. So let me see if I can find a new needle that's going to be the same size. Okay, so my first option was to see if a modern needle would fit, and it looks like it will. So it is flat up here. The eye of the needle is in the right position. That's important. Okay, So I am going to swap out this very pitted rusty needle with this one and hope for the best. Okay, so this it has a thread guide up on top. I'm just going to pop it through that hole and just get started. You know what, this needs oil. There you go. Threading this onto the back. Okay, it's still nice and loose. Now, looking up on the top here, usually this would be underneath, so this is a good view for now. You can see the flat side over here. That is what the flat side of the needle is going to go into. Okay, so flat over here. I'm going to push it up until it stops and cinch this in. Let's see here if this needle bars down further. That looks angled to me. Does it look angled to you? Let's see what we can do about that. Okay, so you know what my problem was, is the thread guide actually is down. It's not up, it's down. Because when you put it straight up, the thread guide is bumping against this, which is putting this at an angle. So flipping it the other way, and probably I made a note of that in my take apart video, if I would watch that. That could help, you know. So flipping it the other way, putting this in, like I said at the first, with the flat part up against the needle bar. And then putting this on. Oh, that's my cat. Just ignore her. Now the needle is in nice and straight. Okay. So yeah, if you can see, flat part right here is facing that way. Now there's a little conical shaped screw that goes in here, and I believe its purpose is to kind of hold these two pieces of that tiny fork somewhat together. It's the only thing I can think of. So if that is nice and tight, will it still move freely? Yes, it will. Okay. Oh my goodness. Do you see? That is her. That is Shop Kitty. I love her, but she demands attention. Okay, so let me get the presser foot out, and so we can get that put on. I gotta tell you something. I'm very frustrated because the other week, a feral tomcat got in here, raised hell everywhere, sprayed in here, you know, abused my kitties and everything. And so I got a smart door on the door to my shop. And that requires the cats to wear a collar with a little pendant that will open the door for them and nobody else. And they've both lost their collars. I just noticed she didn't have hers on. She had it on earlier today. And if she goes out the door, she can't get back in, and it's winter, and that's the whole point. So, okay, I know I'm not done with the faceplate, but I got the little tension release bar out. So I want to go ahead and get this put on here. I guess that's tension release. Now that I think of it, it's probably not. It's probably something else entirely. But I want to get that put on before I forget and put the plate on and then have it sitting there, because that would annoy me to no end. Okay, so this is a shouldered screw, so it's in all the way, and that is still moving. So what is that up against? If it's over here, it's up against this piece. And that would be something that it's up against the back side of this. Curiouser and curiouser. Okay. Anyhow, let me go ahead and focus down here and finish putting together the presser bar stuff here. All right, so putting the spring over that bar, and this is the finial that's going to screw in the top. Go on. Okay, there we go. So let me get this threaded down, probably until I have like that much threads exposed. Okay, so now looking at this, lift your lever down. That looks pretty good. All right, the rest of this is for all of going down here. And actually, it's getting late, and I need to take care of some stuff in the house, so I am going to call it a night in here. Throw some oil in there, and then I will be back tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get this gal finished up. Okay, welcome to the next day, and I want to finish this right now. So let me grab my screw starter, because that's going to come in handy. Oh, it's up here, okay. Let me get this little screw on here. This has two parts. There's a little blade, and it has a hole in it, and that goes over the little indent that's sticking out from the bigger side, which goes on the outside. And let me get this started here. Come on. I might, well, it looks like I've got that all sideways, doesn't it? What is wrong with those threads? Well, let me try it again. This goes in right here into that little hole right there. You know what would help is if I tried to put it into the correct hole. I was doing it on the front one. It actually goes on this one, the same side that the little lifter lever comes out from. So there we go. Much better. Okay, so flipping it this way, we have this piece. This is the little screw. I just have it started in there. I want the screw to be on the back side here, okay, because this has to be completely flat. So let me get it started, and when I put the foot on and center it over the feed dogs, if I need to adjust it, I can loosen this and turn it at that point. So that could be handy. So this is the front and that's the back. So when the feed dogs go on, they're going to go on like that. Okay. But what holds on the feed dogs is first this little piece, and I'm screwing it on until it gets almost flush here. And then, those are my wind chimes. I have the door open because it's nice out. And then this little piece, you didn't see that? This little piece just kind of slides over it. And I need to hold that still while I screw this up. Okay, so now that's just past that little plate. And then there's this screw that's going to go in the bottom, and that needs to go all the way tight. Okay, so then when the feed dog goes on like this, and then you thread this down so it cinches up nice and tight. Okay, so it looks like that. Okay. Okay, so now I need to get this plate put on over here. Okay. All right, now I think we can see. So before I put it on, put a little more oil here in the slide, up here, anywhere that might want some oil, because it's kind of a now or never type situation, hopefully. I need to watch to make sure that when I'm lining this up, it falls in here. And this is going to go through this opening up here. Okay, so that is in that opening. And I need to turn this wheel. If I turn the wheel, will things move? Yes. Okay, that means that bearing is in the right location, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and put these two big screws. There's one at the top and one at the bottom here. They look like this. Put those in. before I let anything go to hold it together. Okay, so now I can let go. So when I turn the wheel, it looks like everything's going up and down right, which is good. I need to go ahead and flip her over so I can put the stuff in underneath. Actually, before I do that, I want to go ahead and put the needle plate on just to make sure that that needle is lining up where the hole should be. Okay, so I've just set it here. So I want to put my feed dogs down, make sure they're straddling the hole correctly, and they are. And put the needle down and make sure it's in the hole, centered in there, and it is. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Yeah. So let me go ahead, raise this up, pull this plate out, and we'll get started on the bottom. All right, so getting this piece here, I'm going to go ahead and put my little shuttle bracket on. Going this way, you can see there's an adjustment point there. So when later, I'm getting everything timed up, if I need to get my shuttle bracket closer to this edge, you can move it over, tighten it, or farther away, move it over and tighten it. I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle, closer to the front, I think, to start with. Okay, let's set that there. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to throw a lot of oil in here. This is an oil hole for later, but get it started in there. And these little forks. Okie doke. Oops, wrong way. All right, so before I finish this up, I need to get these two little washers. You see how that slid over that little ball? On either side of that little ball, one of these washers go. And it has a little curved place that fits onto it. So I need to pull this out. And this is always tricky. And basically I'm going to put a little washer on top of that ball, one underneath it, and try very carefully to hold them while I am pushing this in place. And it might take me a minute, because it's kind of one of those days where I'm not feeling particularly coordinated. There it goes. Is it on? It is on. Oh my gosh, how exciting is that? Okay, so I have this screw here that's going to go through here, and that's going to kind of clamp those two together. But before I tighten that, I'm going to go ahead and get this situated. So here's this little conical piece, which fits over this, pushes it on, okay? And I have this flat screw that's going to go at the end to hold it on. And there should be a set screw spot. Here it is. Okay, there's a little place here for a set screw, which is right here. Okay, so I'm going to get this set screw and put it in there, and that's just going to be an extra thing to hold that little conical nut in place. Okay, so I have all that on. Now I'm lifting it up. I want to turn the wheel, and it feels tight, okay? So what that means to me is that this is pushed up slightly too much. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this little set screw a bit. And this, bring that down just a hair. It's like a fraction of a millimeter. And then tighten this little set screw up again. Okay. And see how that goes. And that is much better, okay? You want it very close. You don't want a lot of play here, but you need to make sure that everything's going to move freely. And that's doing great. Okay. Now that that is good, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Try it one more time. Yep, still good. Okay, welcome back, everyone. It's been a couple days. Family in from out of town, and things are going to start to get busy for Thanksgiving here. So I really want to get this done. So let's see what we can get done here, huh? Back underneath here. And everything's still turning great. I'm going to go ahead and get this put on. There is a little rectangle shaped bearing that's going to slide on here. Okay. And you know what? Let's just throw a bunch of oil on, because you can see right here where it's in that spot. It's a little rough, but that's just life. Okay. I'm going to slide it in this hole over here and have it track all the way through. I said all the way through. Oh my goodness. All right. So before I push it too far, though, this is the little stitch length number dial, and that needs to go on here. Continue to push it through. Okay, now I probably should have showed you, but there is a groove on this shaft here, and I kind of have it pointing at me right there. You can look through this hole and see where it is. If you don't see it, turn your little shaft thing. But I need to line up this hole with that little groove, so I have everything timed correctly. So I'm just spinning it again because I misaligned it. Okay, right now that little groove is there, and I have this very long set screw with the little pointy end, and I need to get that put in through here. Oh, don't turn on me. All right, like that. Okay, I feel like it is in that slot now, so let me get a different screwdriver. Slightly small. Okay, so from the top you'll be able to turn this dial, and it has the numbers on there for the different stitch length, and it does go all the way around. I'm just going to go ahead and cinch that in. Okay, looking good. Now, up on top, there's this, and I'm actually going to hold off and put that on a bit later. It's got its two screws here that go with it. So I'll set that aside. Over here, we have another little screw, but it shouldn't be locking onto that shaft. I believe it's just holding it somewhat in place. Somewhat. So I want to make sure that this can turn freely, and that little bearing right there can turn freely, because that's going to be important. So let's get this started here. Okay, so if that is turned in all the way, this can't move. So I don't want that. I'm going to back it out until this can move. I think that's good. I think that's good. Okay, so we have something that goes here and a big shaft that's going to go down here. All right, so now I'm going to work on this shaft that's going to go through here. And there's a particular way it needs to go. One side, the little slit goes to the end. The other side has a gap. Okay? The side that has the gap here is the one that I'm putting this on. Excuse me. So I need to line it up so that this hole is lined up with that. Okay? And I'm just going to try to center it. I can see the marks right here where it was screwed in before, so I'm going to try to put it over that same area. And I have a little screw that's pointy at the end. Okay, I'm going to put a dab of oil in those threads and get this started in there. Okay, well, screw starter would help. So once I know that that's in the correct place, then I'm going to go ahead and cinch that up and then put the shaft through. Okay, so now that that is on, then I can slide it through here and through here. Make sure it spins well and that everything goes all the way around, and it does. Okay, so down here on this end, I have this piece. So I'm going to throw oil in here, and this little slidey part is going to be on this, but there's a bearing that goes on there. So let me put oil inside that bearing. And I need to turn the wheel so I can get it on here. Push that out so I have room. Okay, so that bearing is on there and it spins well. This is going to slide up over it like that, okay? And then the hole at the end here, I need to push this shaft in. You can see here until it is pretty much flush with the end, all right? Now on this piece, so you need to turn it so I have access to this hole right here. I need to turn that shaft until I see the little slot over here. Why is it turning stiffly? I just need it to turn a little bit, and then I'm going to lock it into place, so that's okay. Oh, my hands are so oily. Okay, if you can see in here, I'm trying to line that little slot up. It's fighting me. Oh, went past it. Okay, there it is. So now I have that slot lined up there, so I'm going to get another screw. It looks just like the one I put on the other side, like that, little pointy end. Drop of oil on the threads. And screw that in. Okay, before I cinch it in, I just want to make sure everything moves well, and it does. So now I can come back with my hefty screwdriver and cinch it. And again, after every cinch, make sure it still turns well. Do the same thing up here, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so down here below, and it's the same thing over there, there's this little hole here. This is kind of like a clamp in the casting. I've got screws that look like this, and I need to get those cinched in on both sides to keep this piece nice and secure, because there's going to be a lot of movement here, and you just don't want that getting weaker, so it gives it extra support. Okay, let me put the one over here. Same deal, you know, just another matching screw, and then I'll be back. Okay, so now over here, this cutout here is what is going to be riding on that rectangular shaped bearing. Remember the word for bearing, okay? So it's going to go on here, like that, okay? Actually, I think I have that backwards, but this part, which is kind of like a little piece of leather or something like that, and I put glycerin on it to try to keep it softer and everything, it's tacked on right here, so it's not going to come off. That is going to be riding on this cog right there, okay? So I need to kind of slide it on here. Carefully get that rectangular piece in the right position and slide it up. Okay, like that. So down here, this piece is riding on this cog. And again, I want to turn and make sure it's good, and it is good. Okay. And then up here we have this little piece of felt, which is kind of acting like a softening buffer there. And this is the piece that the feed dogs are going to attach to. There's a bracket that's going to go here. I'm debating on do I do the feed dogs first or the bracket. And I think I'm going to do the bracket so that this will be a little more secure. Okay, so I'm kind of holding this in place. The round part of this bracket is going to match up with the round part on the casting here. Holding it because everything wants to fall at this point. Now there's a washer here, so you have your bolt and then the washer. And I need to get this to start threading. I can't see where that hole is, but there we go, there we go, there we go. Okay, so that's going to kind of hold it so it won't go that way, but it can still fall straight down. What's going to keep it from falling straight down is the feed dogs. So let me get that. Oh, wait, no. Okay, this little bracket's going to keep it from falling all the way down. Yay. See how that little cutout is on there? So that's great. That is great. Okay, so I can go ahead and cinch this in then. All right. So then from the top, I'm going to slide the feed dogs down through this little hole, and they're going to bolt onto this hole right here. Actually kind of tricky to get them in there with this foot on, so I'm just going to loosen that nut, pull the little presser foot off for a minute, and that way these can just slide down in here. Okay, so there is a screw, but there's also a washer that's going to bolt it on. You can kind of see the outline where the old washer was. That's going to put it in right there. This slot is longer, so you can adjust it to make your feed dogs higher if you want, but I'm going to try to match it up with the position it was originally. Okay, so now down here, I have this spring, which is going to work to push this back. You know, it helps with the feed mechanism here. There's a hole in the casting here that we're going to put a screw and a washer. And then over here, I'll get you this angle. There's a little like finger there. This end of the spring is going to go in there. Okay. Actually, I believe it's like this. Okay. So let me go ahead and get that screwed on, and then we'll make any adjustment to the position of this, you know, one way or the other that I need to. All right, so I've got it started. I'm going to go ahead and tighten it just a bit. And rock her up again and see if it's going to do its thing. I think I need to rotate this a little more towards the front. Hang on a sec. To get more spring action that way. There you go. See how it's pushing it back up? That is what I want. Okay, I'm feeling good about that too. Okay, I forgot the clip. I'm gonna back this screw out a bit because this clip is gonna go on the top part, but it needs to go around the top part of that screw. And the only thing I can think of is that there was a wick or something in here at some point that might have been something that you could put oil on and it would sit so that the shuttle would catch it, rub on it, maybe oil it. That's what I'm assuming, so that's how I'm going to be using it. So let me go ahead, and I need to get this wedged back up in here, and then I'll retighten that little screw. Okay, so I figured out what that is. I had to look up on an old manual for this one that was on the 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐸 website. And it is a friction spring for this stitch length shaft. Okay, so the little cutout part here is up. The spring itself is on the bottom here. It's a little bit wobbly right now because I haven't tightened it up yet. But I can come down here and add just enough pressure that it is friction, not binding it up, but friction, so that this is going to be secure. And that's what it is, you know? So there you go. A new thing learned today. I might back that off a hair, see how it goes. Yeah. So anyway, that's that spring. And the shaft just is right behind this cutout area, and it fits in there really nicely. Okay, I just was recording a whole bunch of stuff, and I realized I did not have my camera rolling, unfortunately. So I'm just getting my bobbin winder put together, just flinging that little ratchet around. Probably not the best thing. This does not have a nut or anything on the back here, so it is what it is. But when I have it cinched in, I want to make sure that when this turns freely and it is engaging that cog. And it is, so that's good. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Looks good. All right, so now I have this spring. All right, one side is straight, one side is curved. The side that is straight, there's a little groove right here. That's going into that groove, okay? And the spring looks a bit dry, so I'm going to add some oil on it just to make sure it stays warm and cozy, you know? All right. If these are all a bit different, so hang on a sec. I think this is the way. All right. So this curved part of the spring is going to wrap around that follower. And I'm going to grab this screw. It has a very, very small little shoulder on it. And just get it started here. Okay, just enough that it's going to hold its place. And then pull it over and push it down. And I want to make sure that this follower is going to ride up next to this little heart-shaped cog here. But I also want to make sure I don't have a spring pinched in there. So, like that, okay? Just to make sure there's no spring in there, I can just run my little screwdriver around it. And that is good. Again, flinging my ratchet around. And I want to make sure that that little arm is centered on the shouldered piece of this screw. And right now it feels like it's not. So I'm just going to wiggle it until it is. It should pop into place. Now let me back this out a hair. I probably have it bound up in there. Come on, little thing. Well, hang on a sec. Let me play with it. Now everything is good. I have a nice snappy spring action here. And this turns easily over here. This turns easily over here. So here's the sad part. This machine was missing the shuttle. And I looked up and none of my stash of miscellaneous shuttles is going to fit on this machine, unfortunately. So I'm not going to be able to try to make it so. But can keep an eye out for one on eBay or something like that. You know, that might just be an ongoing quest for the owner. She is, as far as I know, planning on using this more for display than actually sewing. So we have a little bit of time where, you know, that little hunt might come in handy. Maybe get the rest of the family involved in trying to find the shuttle for Grandma's machine. So this is a white VS3. So when you're looking for one, it has to specifically be for a white VS3. This is one of the newer white VS3s comparatively. Okay, so there's a pin that's sticking out here, and there's a groove in the back here. And I need to loosen this up enough that I can raise it up and it'll sit in that groove. Okay, there we go. All right. So if this was on a treadle, and again, it's going to be displayed, but if it was on a treadle, the treadle belt would be going around the base of the big wheel, around here, and then you'd be able to engage it here. Okay. So it's kind of anticlimactic because I usually like to show it sewing and everything. I am still, I'm going to work on polishing up these plates and everything, so I will be back and I'm going to polish up this little number plate and everything. But looking at it here, the needle is going down and it looks like it is in the right position. The feed dogs are moving, you know, as they should with their snappy little action. I have this set. Hang on a second. Okay. That is 0, so the feed dog should just going up and down. And then as I turn this little dial down here, up to the widest stitch, which is 9. The snappy little action is not doing its thing. I need to work on that. That's the spring. See the spring underneath there? It's looking like it's maxing out at stitch length 8. That's 8 there, and when I turn it all the way to 9, it freaks out. So stitch length 8, I think may be the maximum for this. But I think that it's going to sew. It just needs the right shuttle. And you can't just swap them out because they are all based on the curve here. So like you might find like a Singer shuttle might fit the length close, but the curve of that shuttle is going to come in this way more, so there's no way it's going to catch the thread. So it does specifically have to be one for a white VS3. You know, this is the tension here. So putting it straight up like that is the loosest possible thread tension. Tightening it all the way down here is the tightest. And I'm going to leave it somewhere in the middle, around a 4. Okay. So let me work on getting the plates all cleaned up and everything like that. I hope this has been helpful for somebody. It is a beautiful machine. And I love to see them come back to life. So thank you, and I will be back a little bit later with the shiny plates.